While grief makes its cycles with many bands, especially in recent years or certain ones I've talked about on the channel, Dave Grohl's history with it as a theme is a big component of the foundation that led to the creation of the Foo Fighters as a band, along with a recurring topic on the band's now third best album, their self-titled debut. How explosively Dave rose from the creative phoenix with it by using songs he'd been writing prior to Kurt's passing to bring himself out of his misery is why I'd consider it one of the group's strongest. There's a fiery passion heard, taking shots at Courtney Love on I'll Stick Around, that I enjoy. The defiance against one's own drowning in negativity on Good Grief is incredibly strong, with the screaming of throughout the chorus to almost push out the intrusive sadness, all the while placing moments throughout to create this worthwhile listening experience, like the cute, perfect pop ballad Big Me, or the inclusion of the aforementioned tracks like For All the Cows and Alone and Easy Target that act as snapshots to a less depressing time, add to the overarching through line the album tries to bring to the listener. The deep cuts help round it out wonderfully too, like the razor-sharp Watershed, the ode to lost fast food via Weenie Beanie, and the otherworldly Floaty. They help make this album act as this first step of something new that gives this a life all its own. Even if I redacted this album in the past, it's an instance where that original project still stands out all its own. It's just an era where Dave was writing a menagerie of great tunes. There's a reason why it is still the only Foo Fighters album I have on vinyl as of recording this. I just think it's an all-time classic. That, along with the gritty production, helps bridge the sounds of alternative rock with this and the back half of the decade, as the decade was at its crossroads. It's all those components that I think make it a staple of the decade. With the release of the group's newest album, But Here We Are, Dave might be facing a lot more grief, but he's not tackling it alone this time creatively. It's a record that feels like a full-circle moment for this band while also acting as the most thematically unified album they've done in ages. It's so well crafted, I'd argue it's their second best album to date. The biggest thing setting it above that debut is mostly due to how much better But Here We Are shows a focusing of themes that came with the time between then and now. This is their 11th record, after all, and that time spent crafting since then very much shows, even if it has moments that feel like evolutions on the debut directly, along with adding to the underlying stronger acceptance of death, even if begrudgingly. Similarly to This Is a Call, Rescued's barn-burning sound kicks this record off strong, but sees the casting off in the past also being turned into a call for help, a mission statement to rise, but with the context of being beaten down so many more times before. The harmony of carrying the energy sonically afterward through Under You, while the emotional weight of missing those lost and in need for some help, gets further cemented throughout it, and among the haunting melodies of it creates this energy that doesn't sound like where the band has been exploring throughout their last few releases, but remains within their wheelhouse full stop. I love when the song fades to its acoustic bridge, acts as a great mood shifter before letting the album get back to its guitar flashiness as the title track wades in after that.
Speak to me, my love. Speak to me.
A song with a colossal chorus where the band screams out into the void at Taylor Hawkins, seemingly wishing him love and hoping him prosperity in the afterlife. A similar sentiment shared on the dreamlike Show Me How, where Dave and his daughter reminisce about Virginia Grohl, Dave's mom who'd also passed prior to making this album. Both acting as a waving goodbye, with the latter also acting as a moment for the band's age to stand out, given Violet, Dave's daughter, sends the song into the sunset solo. The depth of grief is given its full time in the track listing, with songs like The Glass and Nothing at All being this 1-2 punch showing the empty feelings grief can bring in both a sad and frustrated sense. The metaphor spinning on the glass brings death into this empty space where Nothing at All builds, and I think acts as a great burst of energy in the album's middle portion. The album rounds itself out on those themes just as gracefully as it started too. Beyond Me might be the one moment on the album that I'm not the biggest fan of lyrically, but it's aptly placed amongst the rest of the tracks regardless, and I think it bridges Show Me How to the 10-minute The Teacher astonishingly well. A moment that acts as the real emotional climax of the album, where Dave lyrically takes the energy from a track like Rescued and doubles down on the desire for help on tackling the death of his mother, while the band adds to the gravitas of that idea with all the melancholic theatricality the album had been sprinkling throughout the runtime. I think it's easily their best long hunger song, and gives this big climax before Rest sees the other side of that conquest against your maker, and seeing oneself still grieving, but more hopeful that you're at least stepping toward other horizons. It's a sentiment that the band has expressed in other ways in the past, but feels all the more apt here. It's the coup de grace that stops this show with this huge yet intimate, noisy finish that I also very much love. But Here We Are might be the best album the band has done in ages, if not arguably their new best album. However, when discussing this band rising like a phoenix, I still think they've yet to tackle that ideology through unity and friendship quite like they had back with their 7th album in 2011, and still their best in my opinion, Wasting Light. There's a life in this project that I think keeps a lot of the spirit I loved on both of the other albums I've discussed in this video, but is ignited farther with a passion that I think stems from reunifying Pat Smear with this group. While I've talked both openers and I've said the band has never opened an album badly, Bridge Burning is the fiery opener for this group. It has this depressing, almost catty tone, but it lends to the spirit of the project full stop. Rope's desperation feels like the other side of the opener's emotional burning. Those emotions further explored through the collab with Bob Mould, Dear Rosemary, along with the build of These Days, and gets pushed into passing past those thoughts through the energy of Matter of Time and Rise throughout the closer, Walk. What I love about this album also is how it ties that thread with the reflecting on the darker and depressing corners of the past via the fantastic loud soft explosion of Arlandria, where Dave looks back on his life post his parents' divorce. Back and Forth reflects on the band's conflict and what brought them here, while Miss the Misery brings that journey to now. I Should Have Known reunites Dave with Chris Novoselic to highlight grief, but in a way that also brings Dave and Pat's career to a full circle moment of sorts. While maybe not as fully thematic as But Here We Are, with White acting as an early album rager, it's one of their best in that style. Also, from a critical perspective, I think Butch Vig's production style adds to that mood better than Greg Kurstin's does, even if it's the best album he's made with them sonically. It created a new era for the band that they may not have capitalized on in any way that I thought was good. I'm at least happy they created a middle point of sorts in the discography that brings elements of their ideology into a perfect head. With that being said, that is how I would place But Here We Are within the Foo Fighters discography. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know where you would place it in their discography, along with some of where it sat with you since it's released, in the comments down below. If you like this discography review, Recontextualization, give it a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. I drop 2 to 4 vids a week, depending on what I've got going on. Thank you again so very much for watching. I've been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations, and I'll see you another day.